Hi there. If you're of a certain age and you've wondered if you may be on the autism spectrum, and you've wondered it just recently or for a long time, or if you know somebody, then stay with me. We're going to talk more about that. My name is Randy. I'm the Autistic Grandpa. So, my purpose here is really just to go take you on my journey of finding out I was autistic in my 60s and talk about some of the things that apply to me. And today I'm going to talk about some of the things that really don't apply to me because it is a spectrum. So things are definite, and then there's things that just aren't there. But what I'm finding out is even things that I didn't think were there may be slightly there. So I just want to give you a few thoughts. One thing people on the spectrum generally have a problem with is small talk. They don't see the need in it. There's not a purpose for it. It makes them awkward, makes them uncomfortable. But I've never had a problem with small talk. As a matter of fact, I like small talk better than big talk. You know, I can chat up a person in an elevator or at the gas station, or even when I'm introducing myself to people, I can say the phrases that I've learned over the years that work, and it's just that after a while it starts getting uncomfortable. And so I think I wouldn't say mastered small talk because that sounds like something I don't want to do and I had to learn. Small talk is easy for me, and I don't mind it. A good example of this is when I got a call from my CEO at one of my companies, and he said, "Hey, I want to come out and ride with you in your territory." And I go, "Okay, that's great. I can handle one-on-one time. I don't have a problem with conversation one-on-one. What I do have a problem with is when there's a group, and then I just kind of wilt to the background." And so he calls me back a week later and says, "Hey, I was telling someone about me coming out and riding your territory, and we've got some other people that want to. So why don't you get a van and we'll just take a tour of 5 or 6 of us?" About freaked me out. And so I thought about it and called him back and said, "No," said, "I want to do it one-on-one." And he agreed. I think it hurt some feelings. I think it made people mad at me, but I just knew what it would be like if I tried doing that. So small talk is good for me. It's something I can do, but being in crowds, even more than just a few people, I don't do conversation very well. Another thing on the list that's a problem for a lot of autistic people is understanding social cues, things like sarcasm or analogies. I don't think I have a problem with that, but I guess how would you know if you don't know that you don't understand it? Unless someone tells you, but no one's ever really told me that I don't understand their sarcasm. I'm pretty sarcastic, so I think it's easy for me to understand. So I don't think that's a problem. Uh, so I think that's definitely a trait I don't have. One of the traits I didn't think I had was stimming. The repetitive movements or the repetitive vocalization. I didn't think I had any of them, but as I look at myself, I may have some small ones. As a matter of fact, if you watched my videos, you'll see, and right now I'm doing something. You know, I'm you see what I'm doing, right? I'm rocking back and forth in my chair. And as I was watching the videos, I noticed I do that constantly. Could that be a stim? I don't know. If you're an expert on it, tell me. Uh, because yeah, and if you've got stims that you didn't realize until you started looking at yourself, let me know in the comments. Another thing I've always done is shake my leg, but I know a lot of people that do that that aren't necessarily on the spectrum. But since a little kid, I just bounce my leg, and it's so bad sometimes that my wife will call from the other room and say, "Are you shaking your leg?" Because she can feel the house moving that far away. But those are the only things I can think of that are really stimming for me. But let me know. I'd like to know if you have any small things like that that you would consider stimming. Another thing that doesn't bother me is touching or being touched. I'm pretty much a hugger and shaking hands, and those things don't bother me. Sometimes I wonder if I know the appropriateness of it. Like, am I hugging too much or am I holding on too long? So I really have to watch that, and I don't know the right answer. But as far as just the touch itself, I don't really have a problem with it. Um, Another thing that's common trait is that a lot of people on the autism spectrum like routines. They want to know that they get up the same way, they eat the same breakfast, they sit at the same desk, they do the same thing day in and day out. I'm not a routine kind of guy. I like it kind of free flowing. Sometimes I said I always liked my job because I'd wake up in the morning not sure what the day was going to look like. Now, I get in general routines and I have general interests that I really follow down a long time. Um, I might I might get something and do it for months or maybe at a year, and then I just get bored and stop it. And that's why I've never really had any hobbies. I don't know how hobbies fit on the spectrum scale because I've never really had hobbies, and maybe that should bother me. I don't know. As I get older, it would be nice if I had hobbies, but my only hobby really is working in the yard, and I love being out there in that solitude. But a good example of what I meant by getting bored is just after I retired, I decided I wanted to write, and I wrote 3 novels within 2 years, and saw what I think is a good deal of success with them on Amazon. I've gotten, thousands of 5-star reviews, so I think I did a pretty good job. But I love the whole process of learning how to do that and watching the videos on YouTube and getting better at it, learning how to market it and such. Well, I did that for, like I said, about 2 or 3 years, and then it just stopped. I didn't have any creative juices left, and I couldn't do it anymore, so I had to move on to something else. This YouTube journey, I don't know how long it's going to go. I'm enjoying learning about it and uploading videos, and the reason I started this is really just because I had a need to share my story with people that might be like me. And because I didn't have anybody in my immediate circle, I thought I would reach out on YouTube and see if any of you might have a story similar to mine. So how long will it go on? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. So these are the kind of things that are generally on the autism spectrum that I don't have or don't have much of. And it makes me reflect on my life, and when I look at these traits or all the traits and just see how they fit me, it's interesting to go back and think about your life once you've been diagnosed and look at all the things that you say, yep, there's my autism showing through. Yep, that's me being autistic. The question that I'm going to try to address in the next video is, if I could have known 20, 30 years ago, would I have wanted to know? Seeing how it affects me, would I have wanted to know that I was on the spectrum that long ago? Of course, I couldn't have known when I was little. They didn't start diagnosing autism until the 90s, and I was already in the 30s by then. So by when I was little, I was just weird. I wasn't being diagnosed as anything. But if I could have known, would I have wanted to? And I think that's a good thing for everybody to think about, how it affects their life or how it has affected their life, and if they could have changed anything or made a different direction in their life if they had known. So join me on that one. I'd really like to see what your feedback is to whether you would have liked to have known and whether you think it would have changed your life for good or for bad. All right. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.